Have you ever felt like your life is stuck in the same place, as if you're waiting for something that never seems to arrive? The truth is, God has already prepared a new chapter for you, but fear, doubt, and past wounds can sometimes keep you from seeing the opportunities He's placing in front of you. What if I told you that this new season is closer than you think, and the only thing that needs to change is the way you see what God is doing? Many people believe that if God had something new for them, it would have already happened. But what if what seems like a delay is actually God aligning everything in perfect timing? What if the doors that closed were actually His way of protecting you? Today, you'll understand why your faith needs to come before your vision, how every season of life has a purpose, and most importantly, how God is leading you toward a better future. He hasn't forgotten His promises. So, if you're ready to break free from this cycle of uncertainty and step into what God has already prepared for you, stay with me until the end. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you can keep growing in Jesus Christ. And now comment below, I'm ready for the new chapter God has for me. Sometimes the weight of the past can feel like an anchor, keeping you stuck in the same place and preventing you from seeing beyond the pain and disappointments you've experienced. But God didn't create you to stay trapped in what's already behind you. He is always preparing a new chapter, filled with opportunities and blessings that can only be accessed by those who trust in His guidance. Imagine a closed door in front of you. Maybe you've knocked on it countless times with no answer. But what if, instead of insisting, you looked up and saw another door already open, waiting for you to walk through? Life isn't static. It moves like the changing seasons. There are times of challenge that test our faith, but there are also seasons of renewal where God gives us the strength to overcome and move forward. Often, our resistance to the new comes from the fear of the unknown. But what if this new season brings exactly what you've been praying for? When you let go of the past and trust in God's promises, a new story begins to unfold. A story led by Him, filled with divine purpose. Nothing happens by chance when it comes to God's will. He's working behind the scenes, arranging details that may not make sense at first. But every loss, every unexpected change could be the beginning of something much greater. Holding on to what was can make you miss out on what's coming. So instead of fearing change, why not see it as a divine gift? God never fails, and He has something new for those who are willing to take a step forward in faith, even when they can't see the full path ahead. God doesn't always reveal the final destination before the journey begins. Many times, He asks us to trust Him before we see any evidence that things are changing. It's like walking down a foggy path. Each step ahead only becomes clear when you choose to move forward. That's the essence of faith, believing before you see. If you wait for proof before trusting God, you might stay stuck, while those who step forward, even without seeing the next step, experience a spiritual renewal that changes everything around them. History is full of examples of men and women who followed God's voice without knowing the full plan. Abraham was called to leave his land without knowing where he was going. Moses had to raise his staff before the sea parted. And what about Peter? He had to step onto the water before experiencing the miracle of walking on it. These lessons aren't just stories from the past. They are still alive today, showing us that trusting God is the key to overcoming challenges and receiving blessings that once seemed out of reach. In times of uncertainty, faith must be stronger than fear. And the truth is, this trust grows when we put it into practice. A single step of obedience today can open doors that once seemed locked. When God places something in your heart, you don't need to have all the answers before you act. He always honors those who trust him, and that trust unlocks opportunities that can only be seen by those who choose to move forward, even when they can't yet see what's ahead. Life moves in cycles, and each season has a purpose set by God. Just like the changing seasons, there are times of planting, where everything feels like effort and perseverance, and there are seasons of harvest, when God's promises start to unfold. But between these two extremes, there are waiting periods, times that test our patience and trust. Many people give up during this phase, thinking that nothing is happening. However, it's in this unseen period that God is working behind the scenes, shaping hearts and preparing blessings that can't yet be seen. Every season brings valuable lessons. In youth, there's energy to plant, learn, and build a path. Adulthood brings challenges that test faith and strengthen character, and in maturity, we reap the fruits of the choices made along the journey. But no matter your age or stage in life, one thing is certain: God never wastes a season. Even life's deserts have a divine purpose. Joseph spent years being shaped in prison before becoming the governor of Egypt. David faced difficult times in the wilderness before becoming king. What seemed like a delay was actually preparation. Understanding this completely changes the way we see life. Instead of complaining about the current season, why not ask God what lesson He wants you to learn? Maybe it's a time to strengthen your faith, heal old wounds, or prepare for a new mission. God always has a reason for each phase, and trusting that turns challenges into stepping stones for something greater. The most important thing to remember is that no matter the season, He is still in control, guiding every step toward the next chapter. How many times have we tried to rush something only to realize later that we weren't ready for it? Human nature wants everything right away, but God works at a different pace. He is never late, but He is never early either. He moves at the exact right time. When a door closes, it may seem unfair, but in reality, it's God's way of protecting you from something that isn't aligned with His perfect plan yet. What felt like a loss may later reveal itself as a blessing in disguise, paving the way for something far greater. It's hard to see this when you're in the middle of waiting. The desire for immediate results can lead to rushed decisions, and many people settle for less because they can't wait for the abundance that God is preparing. But when you trust God's timing, your perspective shifts. What seemed like a delay becomes a time of refinement, and patience turns into a testimony of faith. Just look at nature. A tree doesn't grow overnight, but when it finally blooms, no one can deny the greatness of the process. Every closed door is an opportunity to trust God's plan. Sometimes what feels like a no is actually a not yet. God knows what's best, and when the time is right, He moves in ways so perfect that everything falls into place. The key is to rest in Him and not be discouraged by silence. His timing never fails, and those who trust in it always find blessings beyond what they could have imagined. Holding on to resentment is like carrying an invisible weight that drains the joy out of life. Many people want to move forward, but don't realize that unforgiveness is keeping them tied to the past. God didn't create us to be chained to old wounds. Forgiveness isn't a favor to those who hurt us. It's a gift we give ourselves. When we choose to forgive, we make room for true spiritual renewal, allowing God's peace to fill the spaces that bitterness once occupied. Jesus made it clear that forgiveness isn't optional. When Peter asked how many times he should forgive, Jesus answered, 70 times 7. That means forgiveness should be a way of life, not just a one-time event. Of course, some wounds are hard to forget, but forgiveness doesn't require the pain to disappear instantly. It only requires a decision, one step at a time. Pray for those who hurt you. Choose not to dwell on negative thoughts, and most importantly, trust that God is just and knows how to handle every situation. Many people block God's blessings because they can't let go of the past. But when they choose to forgive, something extraordinary happens. A weight is lifted, the soul is renewed, and new opportunities begin to open. Forgiving doesn't mean approving of someone's wrongdoing. It means refusing to be imprisoned by it. God has new things in store for those who let go of the past and trust in His divine purpose. Those who embrace this transformation experience a freedom that only God's grace can provide. Hard times come for everyone, and it's in these moments that faith is truly tested. When everything is going well, trusting God seems easy. But what about when doors close, when answers don't come, when the storm refuses to pass? That's when we find out if our trust is real or just based on circumstances. The Bible reminds us that God is our refuge and strength, always present in times of trouble. He never promised a life without struggles, but He did promise that His children would never face them alone. Many people wonder why God allows certain trials. The truth is, difficulties often come not to destroy us, but to strengthen us. Just like gold is refined by fire, our faith becomes stronger when it goes through challenges. Think about David. Before he faced Goliath, he had to trust God while tending sheep, fighting off lions and bears. Each battle built his confidence, preparing him for something greater. If today feels overwhelming, it may just be training for the victory ahead. In times of crisis, there are two choices: to despair or to hold on to God. Those who choose to trust Him discover a strength that goes beyond human understanding. This trust is built through sincere prayer, reading His Word, and even simple actions like declaring God's promises out loud every day. Trust doesn't erase problems, but it changes how we go through them. In the end, those who trust in God find not just an escape, but an unlimited source of strength to keep moving forward. Life moves in cycles, and God never leaves anyone stuck in the same season forever. After a harsh winter, spring always comes, bringing renewal and new opportunities. The problem is that many people, out of fear or doubt, resist change and end up missing what God has prepared for them. He's always working on something new, but we must be willing to let go of the past and embrace what's ahead. A new beginning doesn't always look big at first. It might be a small, open door, a fresh idea, or even a simple shift in mindset. God doesn't need something extraordinary to transform a life. He just needs a willing heart. Think about Moses. His great mission started with a burning bush. David was just a shepherd before becoming a king. Small beginnings, when placed in God's hands, become powerful stories of purpose and victory. The key to stepping into this new chapter is trusting that even when you don't understand everything, God is guiding each step. You may not see the full picture yet, but one thing is certain: God never calls someone to something smaller than what they've already experienced. The future is always greater when we walk by faith. If you're ready to move forward, the good news is that God has already prepared the way. You just need to take the first step. Now, let me ask you, are you truly ready to leave the past behind and step into the new chapter God has written for you? Or will you keep holding on to excuses, waiting for things to change without taking that first step of faith? The choice is in your hands. God has already opened the door, you just need to walk through it. So what will you do starting today? Will you choose to trust God's timing, forgive those who hurt you, and strengthen your faith even when you can't see the full path? Or will you let fear and doubt keep you from experiencing His promises? Remember, every step of obedience is an act of trust in God, and that's how blessings begin to unfold. If this message spoke to your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you don't miss anything, and share this video with someone who needs to hear that God has something new for their life. And let me know in the comments, what is the first step you'll take today to step into the new chapter God has prepared for you? I can't wait to hear your response.